Okay, thank you, Mayor. Pursuant to the governor's executive orders, the governor has made a disaster declaration in response to COVID-19. In accordance with 5 ILCS 127E, the head of the public body has determined that an in-person meeting of all individual council members under the Open Meetings Act is not practical or prudent. The Chief Administrative Officer, Joe Wade, will attend in person. The council and members of the public may continue to attend the meeting virtually via Zoom, and attendance in the boardroom is not feasible. Zoom meeting and participation instructions were made available on the agenda. In accordance with the applicable statutes of the state of Illinois and the ordinance of the city of Prospect Heights, notice is hereby given that the City Council Workshop teleconference meeting of Mayor and City Council of the City of Prospect Heights is being held on Monday, March 8th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Mayor Nicholas J. Helmer presiding. This meeting will be recorded and available on the city's website. Attendees who wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items will be provided an opportunity during the teleconference. There is a 5-minute time limit for all speakers, during which teleconference meeting it is anticipated there will be discussion and consideration of, and if so determined, action upon the matters contained in the following.
All right, is it my turn? Yes? All right, then let's go. We're looking at establishing the fact that we have a quorum, so I will take the roll call to determine that. Michelle Cameron, item Ward 1. Are you present? Come off mute. All right, we'll get back to you, Wendy Morgan.
No, I'm here. I'm here, Mayor. I'm here. Sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Sorry.
That's all right. That was great. I'm glad you're there. Ward 2, Kathleen Quinn.
Present, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward 3, Wendy Morgan Adams.
Yes, good evening, Mayor. I'm here.
Good. Alderman Danielle Dash, Ward 4.
I'm here this evening.
Thank you. Alderman Matt Dolick, Ward 5.
Here, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. City Clerk, Joanna Young.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, Mayor.
All right, thank you. City Treasurer, Richard Tibbetts.
Present and accounted for.
All right, it's good to be accounted for. And myself, Mayor Nicholas J. Helmer, I'm here, and we are going to try to get some better stuff. There we go. And move forward. What we want to do is let's tabulate the. We have a quorum. Let's go ahead and tally the vote so that we can start our meeting. The quorum is present. All right. Somebody has got their speaker on and resonating all over. I don't speak out. So the elected officials and quorum was determined. Also present this evening, Finance Director Sherry Graffin. Sherry, are you here? I know you are.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. City Administrator Joe Wade.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody.
Good, thank you. Assistant City Administrator Peter Falcone.
I'm here, sir.
Thank you. Police Chief Jim Zolaki.
I'm out here, Mayor.
Thank you. Director of Building and Development Peterson Van.
Mayor, I'm here.
All right. Public Works Director Mark Roscoe.
I'm here, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Clerk Karen Schulteis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm here.
I stumbled a little bit as Jim. John is back. All right, so our attorney is present, and that's John O'Driscoll. John?
Good evening, Mayor.
Thank you for being there. We had good help from Jim Hess last time, so thank you for recommending him. Okay, Joe, let's probably move back to the agenda. And we called to order. We have enough people to take the meeting. Approval of minutes. I'll take it from there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we have the February 22nd City Council meeting minutes. And if there are any additions or corrections, and if not, we will entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve as presented.
All right, we need
Thank
a second.
Mayor, I'll second it, but I have a change.
All right.
It has to be, so on page 7, under the, regarding clarification on the vehicle licenses that was addressed by staff, it actually was clarification on the vehicle license form. So the word form needs to be in there.
All right, we can
On
add
page
that.
7.
I will do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I should have gotten it to you. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. And you voted yes.
Yes.
All right, what else do we need? Anyone else have any comments? If not, the motion, I believe, passed. Did you get everyone to respond?
It's called roll.
I think we need a vote.
We need a roll call, don't we? Let's go with a roll call. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, actually. Michelle Cameron, Ward 1.
Aye.
Kathleen Quinn, Ward 2.
Aye.
Wendy Morgan Adams, Ward 3.
Aye.
Alderman Danielle Dash, Ward 4.
Aye.
Alderman Matt Dolek, Ward 5.
Aye.
There we have it. That's approved. Joe, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us, we have no appointments, confirmations, or proclamations. Madam Clerk, has anyone registered for public comment for agenda items that are coming up?
No, no one has, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you.
But
Which brings us, Mr. Mayor, to item 5, staff elected officials and commission reports. And being spring, March, this is time of year for the budget presentation. If it pleases Mr. Mayor, we could start with Sherry Grafin's presentation.
Well, that's a good idea. It's always good to figure out what kind of money we have or don't have. Sherry, you're on the air.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, Management, Administration. We're here today to go over the first portion of our budget for fiscal 22. We're going to go over the general fund tonight, and then our plan is for March 22 meeting, we're going to go over all the other funds and our capital improvement plan. As part of the agenda packet, you have the detail line items for every fund, every general ledger account budget. For our presentation today at the meeting, we're going to hit the high level significant items, swings from last year to this year, and talk about some of the COVID impacts and how that's going to roll out into our next year. So once we go through those issues, we're going to hit the preliminary results for our general fund for fiscal 21. We're going to go through future debt service, and we're going to see when our debt's going to be paid off and at what moment in time. And then we'll hit the major items on our proposed budget for fiscal 22. All of our administration directors, managers have worked really hard to put this together, and so each of us will take a piece and hopefully be able to present the budget for the general fund to everyone tonight. Okay, Peter, do you have the slideshow up there? Okay, there we go. So if we can go to slide 3, that would be great. Okay, so we have a few major items that I wanted to bring out at the beginning of our presentation. Our fiscal 21 budget and the impact of COVID-19 on our revenue streams. Luckily, last spring, we were privy, before approving our budget, we were aware of the forthcoming restrictions on COVID. At that time, it was really an estimate because we had no real data to understand where our revenues would fall once the restrictions went into place. And so our fiscal 21 budget reflected approximately 15 to 25% reduction in revenues on the sensitive revenue streams, those being income tax, sales and use tax, places of eating, video gaming, hotel tax, and some others. The restrictions mainly hit our restaurant businesses, sales tax, places of eating, video gaming. With all the restrictions, folks were not allowed to enter those establishments. The good news was, as a result of our conservative budget for fiscal 21 and our strong collections on some of our revenue streams, income and property taxes mainly, our projected fund balance for 4/30/21 is going to be a $163,000 negative number versus our budgeted decrease of $1.1 million. So this is a positive variance for us of about $1 million compared to what we had anticipated our budget our final number to come in at. We're pleased with that. Some of the revenues came in stronger than was originally anticipated. Current funding of the capital plan, we'll go into more details at the next meeting, like I said, but we have some pretty big projects on the horizon. Fiscal 22 budget, as we'll see, has approximately $3.4 million in spending. The biggest project of that is the Arlington Countryside project, and again, we'll go into some detail at the next meeting. What I wanted to mention here is that our funding of our capital fund is planned for the next couple of years, and it really will only last out about 2 years with the current funds that we have on hand. We are anticipating some additional grants coming forward. We have another stimulus that was just passed, I think, the day before yesterday. I think it was passed yesterday. So we do have some additional grants awarded to us to help with those projects. And we'll get into more detail at our next meeting on that. But that is something to keep in mind in terms of funding the projects in our plan. And we are seeking as many outside sources of revenue as we can for those projects. Administration is working on every lead that we can find in order to obtain additional funding. This year, as expected, the police pension contribution, we received our actuarial valuation. We did anticipate an increase in our costs just based on the new law passed and the upcoming consolidation. Our fiscal 22 contribution is recommended at $1.2 million. This is a 17% increase over the fiscal 21 contribution. We do anticipate additional changes once the consolidation happens, and that is scheduled for the next year. By June 22, according to statute, our funds should be consolidated into the state's program. These anticipated changes, once a new actuary takes over, can be, it's just estimated right now as much as $100,000 to $150,000 annually right now is the projection. But again, that remains to be seen once the consolidation takes place. Lastly, our water rate, I wanted to talk and let everybody know we are looking at a 1% increase from $53.99 per 1,000 gallons to $54.55. Our historical rates are shown up there on the slide, and this is our lowest increase over the past few years in terms of percentage increase. So I'm pleased about that. Next slide, Peter. So here's our fund balance projections taking us from the end of April 20, fiscal year 20. We have our projected results for fiscal 21, our ending balance as of April 30, 21, and then we have our preliminary budget for 22. We're going to focus mainly on that first line, the general fund. As you can see in the column net revenue expense fiscal 21, there's our negative $163,000. Again, compared to budget, that's $1 million in the positive direction for us. Our budget for fiscal 22 is listed up there as well. We have $8.5 million revenue budgeted and $9.279,973 expense. So our bottom line budget in the general fund is negative $766. We were not able to reach a balanced budget this year due to the ongoing impact of the COVID restrictions. We are anticipating still some strain on some of those sensitive revenue streams. It is planned to get better as the year goes on, but it's still going to take several months, maybe even longer, to get to where we want to be. So we're going to focus on the general fund budget, as you see in that first line. And if we want to move to the next slide, we can talk about preliminary results from 2021. Our revenues were budgeted at 7.733, and we came in at 8.121. So our total overall revenues were 105% of budget. Really good number there. Our income tax was basically unchanged. The increase of income taxes, they barely had an impact from COVID. Sales and use tax, again, were steady and pretty consistent with prior years. There was an increase in the use tax based on the increase in online shopping. So that was one positive that we got from our revenues this year, fiscal 21. Expenditures, our direct management administration worked really hard to curtail whatever was not necessary with the uncertainty of our revenue streams, and so we came in 7% under budget on our total expenditures in the general fund. 8.285 was our expenses, and our budgeted was 8.9. So did a nice job. Congratulations to all our directors, managers, administration for holding those costs down as best we can with so much uncertainty. And to April 21, we're looking at a pretty strong unassigned fund balance, $4.9 million. If you look at the bottom of slide 5, the breakdown there, we do have $10 million positive in our fund balance total. 2.7 of that is non-spendable. That's amounts that are due to the general fund from the TIF fund that is recently closed, the payback of the loan from years ago. We have SSA tourism and parking funds currently running a negative fund balance. That's part of the non-spendable as well. We have some restricted fund balance for special police monies that are on hold for specific expenses, and then we have our $3 million emergency reserve still intact. Good news, we did not need to dip into that reserve this year, given our strong revenues that were collected. And then our remaining unassigned fund balance for future is $4.9 million. So we're left at a pretty strong position at the end of fiscal 21. Pretty pleased with where we're at there. We were at $11.4 million at the end of $11.6 million at the end of 20, and we're at $11.483 million at the end of 21. So not a really big change. We held strong during this year with the COVID impacts. Okay, next. For 22, our budget for 22, our general fund revenues are proposed to be $8,513,400. You can see the historical performance between 2019, 20, 21, 22. We were at $9,000,005, $9,000,002. Our budget at 2021, we were very conservative at 7.7, and now 22, we're picking it up a little bit based on some projected revenue increases that we collaborated with the Illinois Municipal League, Illinois Department of Revenue early budgets, and we were able to come and estimate $8.5 million in total revenues. The table up there at the bottom of the slide 6 shows some of the significant revenue streams that are going to change from 21 to 22. The 3 top ones are a plus to us. Our income tax line is going to increase $500,000. Our sales and use tax is going to increase about $600,000, and our cannabis is going to be up $500,000. Cannabis is new. We all know this year came in, and that's going to be a really nice revenue stream for us. $500,000 is our conservative estimate for the first year, pretty consistent with what the retailer is estimating as well. We're tapering off. If you look at ordinance and traffic fines, we have a decrease over previous budget. We budgeted $475 last year. We're down to $235. One of the impacts this year in terms of what we actually collected on those revenues, the ordinance fines, the red light camera was down for approximately 4 or 5 months. That just was reinstalled or reactivated just now in February, so we expect that to pick up for the next year. And our ordinance fines have also reduced because of compliance with our vehicle sticker requirement. Over the last couple of years, we've really reached out and worked hard on collection and information campaign to let everyone know those stickers need to be purchased, and the compliance has definitely improved. On the other hand, that reduces our ordinance and traffic fines. Interest income, the market, if you're watching, we know is down. We did a really conservative estimate there at only $56,000 coming up in the next year. We're projecting the end of 21 to come in only at 81. That drops us about $100,000 off of our prior year budget. Lastly, I want to mention tourism is another fund, but their revenues helped to pay for police services within that jurisdiction. Every year for the past, every year we are reimbursed from the tourism fund collection of hotel tax for the cost of the police services that we provide, and that's according to the tourism agreement. If the money doesn't come in through hotel tax, we do not anticipate being able to pull that money from the tourism district, and so our budget dropped from $168,000, which we've historically passed into the general fund, down to about $3,400. The hotel tax industry took a really big hit, and according to the state presentation last week, could take several years to get back to where our levels pre-pandemic. Chicago might take a little bit longer based on the makeup of what their industry looks like. Our tourism industry in Chicago is mostly business-related, conventions, group events, and that type of thing, whereas in some other areas of the country, you're looking at tourism. So they expect the tourist attractive areas to recover a little bit more quickly than the city of Chicago. So we might see a decrease there in our hotel tax revenue for several years going forward. Next, Peter. This slide just gives you a little quick snapshot, pie graph of what portion of our revenues come from what sources. Our biggest ones being local taxes and intergovernmental. The key thing I want to point out about this slide is we are not heavily reliant on a single revenue stream. We have 35 and 36, and then we have several other streams with smaller percentages. And within those 35 and 36% categories, you'll see at the bottom, there's many different types of tax revenue. Some are variable, some are fixed, some are impacted by COVID, and some are not. So we have a pretty diverse revenue stream coming to the city, and so that's why the risk within each individual stream is not so significant on its own. But these are consistent categories and percentages that we've seen over the years, and so I just listed out the detailed ones that flow into local taxes and intergovernmental taxes as a group. Okay, next. This slide shows us the comparison historically on some of our biggest revenue streams from 2018 to 2022. As I said earlier, income tax is holding its own. We are at budgeting fiscal 22 a little bit higher than previous years. That seems to continue to climb. That is also consistent with the information we got from the state of Illinois in terms of income tax for fiscal 22. Sales tax as well has climbed a little bit over fiscal 21 and is nearing the levels of fiscal 20 within 22 to 23. So again, we've gained ground on the sales tax. Non-home rule and use tax, you can see the little bump in fiscal 22 with the restrictions and the increase in online purchasing. Also with the law that changed whereby online retailers have to submit use tax in the state where the sale was made. And so places like Wayfair, Amazon, those companies are now paying some use tax towards the Illinois businesses. Property tax is holding its own. You can see steady across the board, no big change there. And then in our vehicle stickers, there's some fluctuation. I can tell you that in 2018 and 2019, the revenue increased significantly because of the tickets that we began issuing back then for non-compliance. Fiscal 20, we dropped down, but then again in 21 we picked up that revenue, so that's a timing difference right there. For fiscal 22, we're going to be about consistent with previous years if that tapers off. I can tell you now that the tickets we issued back in 18, 19, 20, 21 for non-compliance with purchasing the sticker has gone down from 12, I believe the first year tickets were issued 1,200 tickets. Overwhelming lot, a lot of people were impacted by that, and our most recent count on the fiscal 21 stickers, we're at about 75. We're definitely under 100. So we have reached out to our residents, and compliance has definitely increased. Ordinance and traffic fines we spoke about already. Those are going down, one because of the red light cameras, and again because of the compliance with the stickers. There's fewer tickets for that. Okay, next. Now we're at our expenditures. We have budget expenditures for fiscal 22, $9.2 million. That's about a 4% increase over last year's budget. And the most significant of those is we have administration legal fees. Our legal fees have increased per budget and actual for this coming year by $60,000. That's based on historical payments that we make to our attorneys for various reasons. We also included as part of the increase any legal fees related to the proposed TIF that we're now in process of discussing and reviewing. Secondly, we have the increase in the public safety pension contributions. That's $183,000 up this year. That's included in this budget increase. And the last thing that changed from last year to this year is our parking fund operations. We would fund the parking lot operations because standalone they were unable to fund with the demand and the revenue that they generated. So we contributed about $55,000 last year. It's now up to $105,000 this year due to the decrease in demand of that parking lot. Very few residents are utilizing that, and yet we still have significant fixed costs related to that space. Next. Our expenditures, general fund expenditures breakdown by department. This again, the breakdown is pretty consistent. Public safety is our biggest bucket, followed by public works, and then the rest on down the line. Our biggest expenditures in that 60% bucket for public safety come from salaries and benefits. We're looking at about $3.5 million. That's over half of their total budget. Health insurance is about $480,000, and then we have their pension contribution coming up due for fiscal 22, $1.2 million. Total budget for public safety is just over $5 million, and so that's where you can see these three pieces are the most significant within that budget category. Okay. Here we have some expenditure trends by department. You could see most of our departments are pretty consistent across the board. City council is flat. Administration is up just a smidge based on that legal fee increase for the TIF discussions and ongoing corporate matters. Community development has a little bump there in 22. Public Works held pretty steady the first 4 years, 2018 to 2021. You can see there was no increase from 20 to 21. In 22, we have a couple of items that we're going to need to focus on this year because they were held off and deferred from last year, and we'll talk about that detail later in the presentation. Lastly, we have public safety. Those costs just continue to increase over the years, with our fiscal 2022 showing the biggest jump. Jim will talk about that a little bit later in this presentation as well. Next. Here we have our debt service payments, pretty steady across the board. up until we hit fiscal year 2027. Once we pay our payments in 2027, our debt service drops to just one or two outstanding issues, at which point the city has options then to consider. Could be going out for new bonds, other types of debt form, but we are pretty steady up until 2027, and then we have relief, which we can consider different options at that time. Next slide, Peter. There's the water fund debt, which you can see is pretty small, this last issue, 2010. So all of our issues combined totaling $11.1 million in principal payments going forward. In about 6 years, we will have alleviated the majority of that debt. We did have a savings this past year on the refinance of 3 of our issues, which saved the city approximately $200,000+ in interest going forward. So that was a nice piece of savings that we got from that refinance. Now we're going to go through each of the departments. Our department directors, managers are going to talk about individual items within their separate budgets. And so first, I'm going to turn it over to Peter to take administration.
Thank you, Sherry. And Administrator Wade, please jump in if I forget anything that's important for the council. But I'll try to be as precise as possible. As you can see, administration kind of covers, as far as budgeting, the city council, administration, finance, and legal. So that's what we oversee. So that's what I'm going to be discussing right now. And as you can see from the diagram that's on here, we've tried to do everything we possibly can for belt tightening like we did last year. As we were successful last year, we're hopeful that our frugality will also benefit for 2022. For under city council and commissions, we did decrease the budget for special events from $49,000 to $35,000. The primary cause of this drop was the fact that last year we budgeted for the census. And you may remember we got a number of grants that covered that expense. So normally, between the Rock the Runway event, which is $20,000 expenditure, the Prospect Heights Park District Block Party, which is $10,000, and then $5,000 for miscellaneous events, we're right at where we normally are historically for special events at $35,000. You also notice under City Council and Commissions is the Natural Resources Commission. They are asking for an increase, and let me explain this a little bit to you so you understand. The Natural Resource Commission has for the past couple of years had 2 interns. The city funds 1 intern at approximately $4,500, and then the Park District funds a second intern. So they kind of tag team it, and they generally try to split the Prospect Heights Natural Resource Commission expenses between the city and the Park District. The increase from last year is roughly $3,200, and this $3,200, as the liaison for the Natural Resource Commission, this $3,200 actually represents the out-of-pocket money that the commissioners actually had spent. So they're asking for, in addition to the 1 intern at $4,500, which roughly is about 9.5 weeks for an intern. They're asking for $4,100 in equipment and supplies. And like I said, this is about $3,200 more than last year, and that's because of the out-of-pocket. They spent $3,200 out-of-pocket last year, so they're trying to at least cover their costs. So that's a slightly larger ask than the years prior. But again, the city council and commission budget has gone down because of that rather large reduction from the census expenditures. I'd like to actually now turn it over because the audiovisual department, the AV department, which is managed by Treasurer Rich Tibbetts, is underneath the council and commission's budget, and Rich has something he'd like to discuss with the council. Treasurer Tibbetts?
Thanks, Peter. As I think most of you, I won't include everyone on the council currently, but I think 4 out of the 5 for sure have heard my speech in the past regarding AV and the related things that AV does. I mean, in general, we like to speak about the position rather than the people that are working there, and so that's what I'm going to be doing in terms of my request this year. So we employ part-time a digital media technician, and that person is charged with recording and playing out primarily council meetings and other meetings that the city holds. They also will maintain our digital signage, which runs in the lobby of the city hall, and there's 2 different screens that are programmed with different types of messages on those. And then also, of course, the other programming that occurs on the cable channel would be announcement boards and special events and other activities that go on around the city that add up to educating and informing our residents as to what is going on around town. In addition to that, the person will also monitor our social media platforms, the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, things like that, and will also assist basically the entire administrative staff sometimes has things for that person to do, including photography, and also having to do with maintaining the city website, the city marquee, adding things for the newsletter, things like that. Just it all adds up to a lot of detail that has to be maintained consistently over time. So the bottom line is that this is not a full-time position to the city at this point in time. It's 20 hours a week. However, I've asked in the past for us to expand that time. At this particular juncture, even though I know people have cautioned me to say, well, this might not be the right time to do that. Well, I don't know when the right time is. And so I'm going to say it should be sort of incremental, or could be incremental, because as we looked at a panel last year, it showed that there was a incremental increase to 28 hours a week. It would be an additional 8 hours a week. And at this particular point in time, if we were to budget the 28 hours a week, the additional cost to the city would be estimated at $17,000 for the year. So that's my request in terms of changes to the department for the next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you, sir. I don't know if there were any questions for the treasurer.
No, I just want to say, with Alderman Morgan Adams, that Patrick's played such an important role, not only in AG but with respect to the entire city, and I just think it's so important that Patrick does have those extra hours. I think it's incredibly valuable to the city, and I think we should support it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, I will move on. Into the individual, now we go into administration. Still, staffing is consistent from prior years, 3 full-time and 2 part-time staff. We do have, as you may remember, and I spoke with Treasurer Tibbetts, we did bring the idea of making Patrick full-time last year. And as you remember how horrible the situation was financially because of COVID, the council thought it prudent to hold off and wait maybe and see if things got better through the course of the year. So we did actually keep on the books, even though it wasn't implemented by the city, by the council, the full-time status as far as we had a budget for it. just in case the council changes their mind. So under wages, there is a decrease because, again, as Treasurer Tibbetts had just alluded to, it's not a request for a full-time position. So there would be a decrease from what we had budgeted last year in wages. And that's just the differential between full-time to part-time. Under professional services with Gaywalt Hamilton, our engineering firm, we are looking to do some GIS system updates, which will be an increase of $10,000. For our finance, contracted through Lauterbach and Amon, we are looking at a decrease of $37,000. They are not cutting their costs. What we are doing though is properly allocating their costs across our other enterprise funds, so that whenever if somebody's doing something for the sewer fund or for the water fund, it gets charged accordingly. For under legal, which administration also monitors or manages, our housing attorney, our labor attorney, and outside counsel, that's all pretty much the same. We are going to be entering into MAP discussions with our patrol officers and our sergeants shortly. So some of it will be done before May 1st, some of it will be done after. So that cost, so we had split, or we have funding for both the labor attorney in 2021 and the 2022 budget. And as Sherry alluded to, there is an uptick for our general legal services. $240,000 was budgeted last year, and just the historic trend is that it's going up. This is primarily to do with, I want to say, the special projects the city has, the Crown Castle Tower, and things as Sherry had mentioned, the Prospect Point TIF. The problem though is the Prospect Point TIF is not in effect yet. It doesn't exist. So we have to account for that expenditure somehow in this budget. And we have historically, for anything, any special thing that comes up, or like the Crown Castle expenditure, that has been added into the general legal services fund. So that is just the case of, the city needs to spend money on certain things, so we have to increase it from the 240 to the 300 based on the historical trend. And that is it right now. Administrator Wade, if I missed anything or you need clarification, if you want to give the council clarification, anything, please.
No, Peter, nice job. On to the next entrance.
So can I jump in for a second? So we presented Treasurer Tibbetts presented the increase to the proposed budget of $17,000 for the AV position. Do we need to have clarification at this meeting if we're going to increase that, or I just want to clarify how we go forward with that number?
It's only presentation tonight. We're asking council not for decisions tonight, but for deliberation. So I would think just at present, if we could just carry that number as what is requested by the treasurer.
Okay.
I have a question. This is Wendy Morgan Adams. I'm also supporting the Natural Resource Committee's request for an increase. Now, is that, we're going to have discussions on that as well later on?
Yeah.
Have the ability to deliberate and discuss that? I want to make sure.
Right. Tonight, certainly if any council members have any questions or comments, but that is wonderful, but we are not asking for an ultimate approval of the budget tonight. Really, it's a presentation night, as will be the next meeting when we get into special funds as well as the capital budget.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, this is Rich Tibbetts. I'm expanding on what Sherry was asking, would it be appropriate for her to change the line item in the budget for the AV technician to incorporate the 28-hour change, and then see if the
Oh, I see
council
what you
wants
mean.
to.
Yeah, that part is fine, as it is presented. No more, no less. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
All right, anyone else, please? We want to move on to item 5, if we can, Joe. And I will call the people that have their reports.
Well, we have other budget presentations. Building, police, public works. Sherry, do you want to orchestrate the presentations?
I'll do that. Our next department is going to be Building and Development, budget presentation put together by Dan Peterson. I'll turn it over to Director Peterson at this time.
Thank you, Sherry. Mayor, City Council, thank you. Historically, the building department has been a very steady, flat, consistent light item. However, if you notice back in fiscal 20, we had a large revenue under the fees. That was one-time money that came in with the Connor project and the River Trails permit cycle. So last year, for fiscal 21, we had reduced the projected budget revenues according to be conservative with COVID. I'll report when we get into the next slides. But as I see and project for this fiscal year, fiscal 21, we're going to increase that revenue slightly. We're still seeing a lot of permit activity in the residential homeowner sector, home remodeling, large remodeling, as people spend their monies reinvesting in their houses versus taking trips or other types of expenditures. So we're proposing a slight 7% increase in our proposed budget over last year's budget. Additionally, we budgeted very flat and conservative. We do have some slight increases proposed for this year. Those we'll get into more detail, but it's a very moderate 3% increase over last year. Next slide, please, Peter. Again, highlighting some things that happened this last fiscal year. We were very conservative at about a $407,000 budget. We did realize about $100,000 over budget. We did see increases in the number of new single-family homes. We had 6 of them last year, all major. Again, we also had the home improvements and major remodeling based on, and a lot of that was driven by the COVID restrictions, which spurred home improvements. The opening of 2 new businesses, Fry the Coop and Zen Leaf, which were large permit items, and the new U.S. Custom buildings were major contributors to the surge in revenue, along with the general uptick in permits. Our expenditures are coming in 4% less than budgeted. We put on hold the start of our code update this past year, which we're going to have to start looking at next year. We are going to be due for our building code effectiveness grading survey here in 2 years, so we're going to have to start doing code updates again. This past year, we had a large reduction in contract inspections. As the restaurants and those businesses were closed, there was no need to have the level of inspections that we were doing. And so this year's budget will come in back at previous year's level because we're back on track doing those inspections. We did see a major reduction in training due to COVID, and the Economic Development Institute that I'm part of was canceled for 2020 due to the COVID. It has been rescheduled, and they're starting up in 2021. Next slide, please. I am projecting an uptick in our revenues. However, it's not going to match the net revenue, I believe, that we predicted this year in permits. There will be a slowdown, even though we will still have a lot of home remodeling, there will be a slowdown. And that's mainly due to the increase in construction materials and the availability of those materials. When the COVID restrictions and that production line of raw goods and materials stabilizes, I believe those costs will come back down and stable, which will then also hopefully uptick permits. Because of the federal foreclosure restrictions, we have not seen any new revenue due from that program. It's that any foreclosed property that was in the program prior to the government restrictions is still there, but we haven't seen any new registration fees. But it's targeted that the foreclosures relief will be targeted for removal sometime in September, so we may see a minor uptick the rest of the year. Next slide, please. Our expenditures are approximately $19,000 over last year. We have 85% of our budget is fixed personnel costs and fixed costs, and there's a slight increase there. Our billable engineering is going to be going up a little bit with the, we project some re-reviews when the Lexington project comes back. I have budgeted additional money to get back on track in my Economic Development Institute program, which is basically a 3-year college program done over basically 4 weeks. It's about 120 credit hours worth of time and high intense training, which has been very beneficial to the program. I started it in 2019, and it's been very helpful so far, and will be a great benefit to the staff and the program. And again, the foreclosure fees are down, but we still have to do the inspections of the properties we have. Next slide, please. I did want to point out that this budget does not take into account any revenue from the Muir Park Townhome project. I think it would be too premature to start estimating permit revenues, fees at that level. However, should the project be moved forward, full budget and accounting will be brought forward for any amendments that may come should that go forward. If you notice by our graphs that Sherry presented earlier, we're very consistent, very frugal, and almost a flat line, and I don't contemplate any large revenue or expenditure deviations this next fiscal year. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay. The next department to highlight is our Public Works Department. We have Director Mark Roscoe on board here to present his department's fiscal 22 budget. Mark?
Good evening, Sherry. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Council. Well, at the start of 2021, the budget, all the department heads got together with Joe Wade and reduced everything. We cut back tremendously. Non-critical work that we could put off, we have. We're still maintaining a safe city for all of our residents and guests. But many projects were deferred, activities, and we'll complete this year well below even our adjusted forecast that we went through last year at this time. We're typically staffed with a director and 6 full-time employees. We bring on 2 seasonal workers for landscaping during the summer. We've been very successful with that. But at the beginning of this year, we had one of our employees leave us to go somewhere else because of a move, a housing move. So we've been understaffed for the last couple months during this weather. It's been difficult. I'll say that our current workforce, I give them accolades. I know the aldermen have expressed their appreciation, but I didn't directly, and they really kicked it for us this year. We're looking forward. We just had a conditional offer of employment to replace that employee, and we may be getting him on board within about 3 weeks from now. One of the big things for our budget this year is the purchase of a sidewalk plow / snow machine. We currently snow plow around 6 miles of sidewalk. About 6 miles. As many of you know, the walks that we do are the Schoenbeck area, our Safe Roads to School corridor, east side of town over by Piper and Burning Bush and Apple. These are high traffic, high density areas. We also snowplow the sidewalks from River Trails Park District all the way down to the Chase Bank, and then from there all the way up to Palatine Road, as those are highly used sidewalks, and with the IDOT and county snow programs and the placement of the streets and sidewalks, it's very difficult for even our residents to clear those areas. One of the problems we have is with such a large amount of sidewalk and the fact that we're really pushing to get some more sidewalks put in along Wolf for our pedestrians going to the metro station and in the future down Camp McDonald Road, our efficiency is pretty poor. With one machine, it takes us days to get those sidewalks cleared. So we'd like to get another machine on board so we can get these done a little quicker. This last winter, yes, we had some heavy events. There's some sections of sidewalk that we weren't able to clear even 6-7 days after the event due to the next event starting. So that's something that we've had in the books for a couple of years we've been talking about, and this year we'd like to make it happen. So next year we can get into the season and really progress well. The machine won't just do snow. I'll have a couple other attachments. We'll be able to flail mow the weeds and the stuff along the tourism area, along our levee and our lowland areas near the river and the creeks. So that's kind of the only major purchase we have coming up. Some building work this year. We're planning on doing work at the police department. We've put off replacing carpet there in the front office, in the training rooms, the tile floor in the booking area. We've done repairs and cleanings, but it just doesn't cut it. The building's aging, and it really needs, it's been time for a couple years. Outside the police department, we have some landscaping work to do, some more concrete work. Just a lot of general maintenance things that have some price tags associated to it, but we just didn't pull the trigger on this last year. One item on the list for this year at Public Works is roof repair for the main part of the building. Last year, the year prior, we did the office area. The Public Works building was built in 1985, so the roof has taken a beating over the years. In our main parking area, there's fiberglass skylights, and they're fading. They're in really poor shape to become brittle and leaking every time it rains and snows. It's an expense that we wanted to do in the past couple of years. Again, we've pushed off. We're hoping that this year it fits the bill. City Hall, general maintenance work, parking lot repairs. And the other thing that's a topic on the budget as we talk each year is streets. In general, our streets are in really good shape. Yes, we have some areas that are cracking and fatiguing. We do need, some streets need more attention now than others. This year, we're going to do some spot patching, not just pothole filling, but some, cutting out some squares. We have a contractor come in. We have around 10 spots in town, a few up in Country Gardens, a few in the area just south and east of the post office. And those are things that we need to do before we lose the road entirely. Another thing on the list for this year, with COVID over the last year, our training has faltered a little bit. We still do training with the crew, but not the in-person training and not the big impact stuff. So we're getting, training programs have finally become rescheduled. We have our water operator who goes to the big water training event each year for CEUs to get certified. So we'll be getting that back on the books later this year. Myself, I'm involved with the Illinois Public Service Institute, a 3-year certification program that got stalled out this last year due to COVID. So that's going to start up again midsummer this year. And the next council meeting we have, as Sherry and Joe have stated, we'll be talking about our smaller funds, the sewer, water, Metra, and tourism district in more detail. But for the general public works department, those are kind of the highlights. Sherry, I never asked you to advance slides. I just realized that. You can kick to the next one. It's there's only a couple on there. Vehicle maintenance, a picture of the roof, and then things that we're going to work on. Oh, the last thing. Sorry, snow and ice control. Sherry, if you could back up. We've talked in the past years about improving our ability to fight ice during the Arctic-type weather. We started 2 years ago with purchasing some tanks for 2 of our trucks. We planned on last year to increase to 2 more tanks and a ground tank to store some liquid. We've kind of fallen out due to COVID and cutting with the budget. This year we'd like to increase by picking up a couple more pieces of equipment to kind of build up our stable. So maybe the prior end of this year or the next year, we can be in the situation to fight that ice buildup a little bit better. So this was a struggle year for snow and ice, and we made it through, and it was beautiful today. But we need to keep in thought that, you know, the years to come, we're still going to deal with snow and ice. So I was a little long-winded. Sherry, back to you.
Thanks, Mark. We're now to our police department. We are the biggest portion of our budget, like I said earlier, over $5 million. We have Chief Jim Zalaki going to present his budget for fiscal 22. Go ahead, Jim.
Thanks, Sherry. Hello, everyone, Mayor and Council. Sherry kind of briefly covered our revenues and expenditures here. The revenues are down. I have another slide explaining more about the traffic fines and the ordinance and fines, which she had covered. Our expenditures are going to be up about $223,000. Large portion of that is from our pension. However, from our budgeted for this year, I had $5,336,968. We're projected around $5,097,958, down by about $239,000. That's based on just watching what I'm spending. Had a couple openings for part-time officers and my admin assistant, so I haven't kind of held off hiring them to the first of the year, so should be a savings of about $239,000 on my expenditures. All right, next slide. The goals every year is just to maintain the quality of service, employee retention, and maintain and upgrade our equipment. Next slide. Our staffing, full staff, we're at 28 full-time staff, 23 full-time officers, 5 part-time. We have 9 administrative staff, 4 full-time, 5 part-time. Currently, we're in the process of hiring 1 officer from one that we had from a retirement from the summer. We're trying to fill that, and then my 2 part-time officer vacancies and my admin assistant we've been holding off for, just for the savings. Last year we applied for the COPS grant. We did get approved for the $125,000 over a three-year period. We hired the officer Barrett in August, so we're recouping some of the funds. So this year Peter's gonna break it down. I think we're gonna probably recoup and submit a refund for $32,000 to offset some of my expenditures for my salaries for this year, so that'll help. Next slide. The revenues, as Sherry had covered, traffic fines were down. It's the red speed is one of the big things that just less repeat offenders. There's also talk of every year of eliminating red speed throughout the state. There are some reps down state that want to get rid of that, so we're trying to be a little more cautious of not being too high on that. And it was down this year because of construction, and also court costs and fines are down. A lot less traffic. It was out there because of COVID. A lot more people are working from home. And then our ordinance and parking fines are way down. As Sherry stated, we're getting a lot more compliance. More people, our revenue for our city stickers are way up. And we always do our ticket blitz, when they're due, and sending out the letters. So that's going to be down. Our admin tows, once a car, if we arrest somebody, we tow cars. There's a $500 admin fee. That's down from what I originally budgeted. There was less traffic out there, less DUIs because bars and restaurants are closed. So there were less DUIs out there to get. Our alarm license fees, that's pretty flat, $11,000. It comes in about the same every year. And then we do get some revenue, non-grant detail-related expenses. It varies. This year was down because we usually work for the churches. We do some traffic control. So it kind of offsets what my expenses are in the revenue, so it kind of offsets, but it was down this year. Next slide. Alternative funding. I'm always looking for free money. I'm always out talking to our grant writer, looking for grants. Last year we had the Jag Grant, the Justice Assistance Grant, where we hire extra officers out during the summertime or problem areas. Last year we were awarded $15,688, and I'm also looking to do that again. Not sure, sometimes if you had it one year, you may not get it the next, but we're going to reapply. I just talked to them the other day. We're going to reapply for that. Also, every year we do our IDOT grant for extra traffic enforcement, usually around the holiday time. That gives me extra officers out on the street, and we get reimbursed for that, about $4,400. And then also this year, there's a Illinois law enforcement training grant for body cams or car cameras. I'm going to apply for the car cameras this year. We don't have to have our, based on the new law enforcement mandate, we're not going to be required to have body cameras, I think, for about 4 more years. So this year I'm going to start out with getting car cameras, and they'll reimburse up to about $5,000 per car just for the equipment. So I have 10 cars I want to outfit, so hopefully I'll get reimbursed maybe about $50,000. So we're going to be applying that grant. This comes out in March, so hopefully we'll get that. Next slide. Big next alternative is our DEA task force officer. We have one officer full-time detached to the DEA. We get shared revenue, whatever they bring in. It's not guaranteed every year, but it's a nice chunk of money coming in when they do make their stings. And what we have done this year, we're going to use instead in the capital budget. And I talked with Joe about this, and I'm going to purchase our 2 squads out of there and the car cameras if I don't get reimbursed. So the 2 new squads, I budget about $90,000. That's going to come out of my DEA fund that we have in our account instead of out of the capital improvement fund. So that'll help that fund there. Next slide. Expenditures up $223,000 from last year, and on the right side, significant increases. The pension, which is $183,000, workman's comp's $11,000, health insurance is $28,000. So it's relatively flat if you take those big numbers out. Some of the decreases are Northwest Central Dispatch decreased $30,000. That's based on their 911 surcharges. Wages, some of our full-time wages down $12,000. Overtime, I took down $19,000. A lot of that is just being reimbursed from the church when we do our extra details or from anywhere else. But the rest of the expenditures are relatively flat. Next slide. Northwest Central Dispatch. This is a new CAD system that's been in the works. It was supposed to be up and running about a year and a half ago. So we're still using our old system, but they're supposed to go live within the next couple of weeks, and that's will eliminate this ID networks, which I've been paying. I'm still going to keep $5,000 in the budget due to they're having a little bit of issues transferring all the old records to the new system. So in order for me to have access to our old records, I'm going to keep it budgeted about $5,000 so we can still access our old records in case they have issues of getting those all transferred over. I did switch over. We were using ID Network's live scan system, which I paid about $5,000 a year. I just switched over to Cook County live scan fingerprint system. We've been doing it for about a month now, so that's going to cut out about $5,000 from the budget there using the Cook County live scan system. So that's about all I have on mine.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Okay, at this time, I guess I'm going to open up the floor to see if there are any specific specific questions or general questions on our budget for the general fund as presented so far? For myself, any of the departments? Does anybody have any questions at this time? Okay. If there being no questions, I'll just repeat the March 22nd meeting coming up in 2 weeks. We will finish up our budget presentation, which will include the capital improvement plan details, as well as we'll be addressing all the other funds within the city. Thank you to everyone thus far for presenting all the information. And if there's any questions that you have between now and next meeting, please feel free to email me. We'll get you that information turned around as quickly as possible. Be happy to go into the details with anybody who has questions. So again, feel free to send an email and we'll be happy to discuss more details with you at that time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just to add to a great discussion, and all the department directors have worked very hard to get through this year, and this was a particularly challenging recession. I think this is maybe the fourth one that I've worked through, but it was the only one where areas of business were actually shut down for health reasons. So it has been very challenging, and I also want to stress too, not to lose sight, but the COVID relief money that the federal government passed, and then that went to ultimately through Cook County, was distributed to municipalities. That was very helpful to us this year. That provided, I think, about $340,000. I know when that was being discussed in Congress, Mr. Mayor, Madam Clerk, you watched that like a hawk to make sure that the city was aware that that would be forthcoming. And we are also, Mr. Mayor, you might want to talk about it in your report, but we're awaiting a similar COVID relief and stimulation forthcoming very soon. So at that, Mr. Mayor, if you want to continue the reports, that's where we're at least as far as tonight's budget presentation.
All right. Thank you. Everyone did a wonderful job. I actually understood most of it, which I'm not a numbers guy, basically, but we sure need to be. Let's talk about item 5 then, Joe. Staff, elected official, and commission reports. We can start with the elected officials, and let's start with Michelle Cameron, Ward 1.
Hi, Mayor. I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
All right, Kathleen Quinn, Ward 2.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First, I want to say Happy International Women's Day. That's a celebration from the last 4 days, culminating today, and thank you to all the women who have participated in that. And I also want to mention, kind of echoing on what Joe Wade said about the CARES Act, I want to thank Joanna Trezonic especially for keeping her eye on, because the grants, as we've seen tonight, are incredibly important, and this is something that she brought to the attention to the council and staff, I believe. So I want to thank you, because we need everybody's eyes and ears out there, and this was a big, big deal. So Joanna, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
That's my report.
All right, thank you, Alderman Danielle Dash.
No report tonight.
All right, go ahead.
Hi, Mayor.
All right, back to Wendy Morgan Adams in Ward 3.
I would like to ditto Alderman Quinn. Thank you to our city clerk for her great efforts in making just making clear and promoting that CARES Act grant, and that was really important for our city. And I know that she's also watching the new the new stimulus relief for our city that may be forthcoming. Hopefully, will be forthcoming. And I thank the staff also for their work in obtaining it. But it is very important. These things are important, and Joanna did a great job in bringing this to the attention of staff. And thank you so much. I also, again, I agree with Alderman Quinn. We don't agree all the time, but we agree tonight. International Women's Day, it's the end of that period, and I want to thank everyone who stood up for all the women who are leaders in our community and in our city, state, and country and internationally.
All right, thank you. Alderman Matt Dolick, please.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no report, but I just wanted to say I really appreciate the information in the departmental reports. That's great information to digest and mull over. So I appreciate everyone's report and information. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I lost you, but I would say thank you anyways. City Clerk, are you back?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the recognition. Thank you, Sherry Brafin, for reviewing the hotel industry report. I do plan to forward your email over to our mayor and Joe Wade, our administrator, so they too can see that report. It's very interesting, and it sounds a little pessimistic, obviously, that it's going to take many years, but one thing I noticed was, and I don't believe they accounted for the vaccination process. I don't think they can really account that anyway, but I'm hopeful and more optimistic that would speed it up for our tourism industry. And yes, it's true, I am watching the COVID-19 relief bill. It's not signed into law yet, so there are some things missing in there. It will obviously change. But they did already say that they will be helping local governments no matter the size. So hopefully that will raise our revenues for some of the things that were mentioned tonight that badly need improvement with many things that we do need. And then lastly, in the e-newsletter that's coming up this Friday, ComEd is going to be helping a lot of people with unpaid bills. So keep an eye out on that. And if anyone's on the call and has any questions, call in. There is a website link to get that application going. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Treasurer Tibbetts.
Joanna, I'm going to give you a thank you also. In addition to that, I'm going to give you an attagirl. Other than that, I have no report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. City Administrator Wade.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Celebrate International Women's Day, and happy spring, everybody.
All right. Police Chief Jim Zalaki.
I have nothing other than what I presented tonight. And one other thing, most of us officers, we did receive our second vaccine last week, and we have a couple more that are getting theirs, I think, on March 17th. So a lot of us got ours in, which we're very thankful for able to get our second vaccines.
All right. I presume everyone knows Walgreens is open next door, so I'm not sure how they take their reservations or if they take anything but over 65, etc. But they are in business. Director of Building and Development, Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of quick announcements. Last fall, the council approved the sports wagering for Hawthorne Racecourse. I'm proud to announce that they will be having their soft opening this Friday and a ribbon cutting ceremony next Tuesday. So we have another new business venture and revenue source that is starting up here in town. And then we have been working with our restaurants continually to talk about the guidelines. We've done some a lot of site visits recently, and we are gearing up for our spring cleanup. Folks, as the snow melts and that, and please be respectful of your neighbors, and if there's stuff in your yard, please take care of it. We have a great city here in Prospect Heights, and everybody chips in greatly, and every bit helps. So thank you very much. That's all I have this evening.
Well, thank you. The opening of the new sports venue You mentioned the dates, but they also have a VIP invitation for the aldermen. And they are limiting half the limit, the attendance to, to 8 people. You know, some of you have not been attending over the last year or two any of the openings, and I think that's a mistake. You should get out, you should meet people, and talk to people, especially if they're in your ward. So let's think about that. There are a couple of things that will be coming up very soon. Director Mark Roscoe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Other than what we had earlier in the budget presentation, I'm enjoying a nice slow thaw to all the snow. Our crew is out working, of course, on stormwater and sewer work. We've had to repair many spots in the road where we've had some temporary structures or some real structures that have failed. But we're moving forward, and we're really appreciating the nice weather, and we can start addressing a lot of other issues. Happy spring.
Thank you, and to you too. Deputy Clerk Schultheis.
Thank you, Mayor. No report.
Thank you. And John, our attorney, are you there?
Yes, Mayor, I am.
There you are.
So, apparently the CDC came forward with some recommendations regarding vaccinated folks and whether they should be wearing masks once they meet with others. And there's several pages worth of recommendations that popped out today. So I'm sure there'll be much more discussion about those down the line.
Good. Thank you for that. I'm a little out of turn here because I wanted to bring this up a little bit later. But one of the most euphoric meetings that I attended with none other than Joe Wade was the presentation from Jan Schakowsky, our person from the House of Representatives, and three or four other people on Zoom. And when the number came up, it almost felt like it was a number that would go to someone else. But that number is almost $2 million, and maybe some of you have heard about this already. It happened Friday. $2 million unrestricted funds that Joe and I were in the presentation. And, to say thank you 200 times wasn't appropriate, or 2 million times wasn't appropriate. But by gosh, we've been trying to get into this Arlington countryside flooding and drainage problem. And we had the engineering done, as all of you know, I'm sure. And it's time to try to get it shovel ready, shovel started. And I mentioned that to Jan, and we talked for a while. And she pointed out that this is great. One of the things I have to say too, we have $1.5 million set aside also from grants and from our own money. And we're ready, but we couldn't get started because we needed $3.5 million. And let me ask you now, if we have one of those check presentations with the large board and the large numbers on there, I'd like everyone to be there. May not happen because, this is a busy time for everyone. So to pick up almost $2 million as a grant, that's amazing. It's amazing to me. I've seen a lot of grants come through. Many of them, $200,000, $300,000. The elevator contract was $100,000, and we got a grant for that, our elevator at City Hall, among many others. But I've never seen $2 million all in one place at one time for our purposes. So that is really wonderful news. And I'm not sure what it'll do to the budget, but hopefully it brings out some help, and it won't be so desperate to try to move on to Will Road and other really bad problems we're having with flooding and drainage. So that's good news. Joe, anything you want to add? You were there.
Oh, Mayor, it's great. I think this project, the city's been looking to, has studied it going back for almost 40 years or more. And also, we received 2 grants earlier from Representative Walker, Senator Gillespie. So, coupling these monies together, also with the city contribution, it's just it's nice to move a project forward. And I also, too, Mr. Mayor, want to thank the council and council members before the present council for having the foresight to approve the engineering recommendation, because it's often good to have engineering plans that are ready to go for construction when a stimulus package comes about. If we had not done the engineering, we wouldn't be able to move forward with this project. So it turned out it was a very good investment.
And it's paying off. And you're right, this stuff goes back 40 years. If you take it year by year, you'll be amazed. But hopefully, in this next year, we will have a great start on this particular project and many others to come. So thank you. All right, you can go on with whatever's next, Joe.
Okay, well, that brings us, we have no items of new business, but we do have the consent agenda. Items of routine in nature. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Morgan Adams.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. And Joe, this covers items A, B, and C also, or is part of the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
So got that covered. So approval for the consent agenda, please give me a motion to do that.
We have the motion. We need the roll call.
All right. We had a second, I presume.
Yes.
Let's have the roll call then. Thank you.
Alderman Jolick,
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams,
Aye.
Alderman Cameron,
Aye.
Alderman Quinn,
Aye.
Alderman Dash.
Aye.
All right, everyone agrees. Thank you. And the motion passes 5-0. Moving on to what, your old business?
Yeah, no old business, no new business. With the next meeting, we will have the second part of the budget presentation with the capital fund, and much discussion will be about Arlington Countryside. And we will also have the special funds as well, water, sewer, special service areas. Nice story to tell with the sewer fund, Mr. Mayor. That's working very well as far as proactively recognizing and addressing improvements without disruption of service. So it'll be a good meeting next week, or next 2 weeks. And that, Madam Clerk, brings us to, let's see, approval of the warrants.
How about item 9?
That discussion topics for this meeting, we have none. The next meeting will be much of the time will be spent on the budget.
Right. When we get to actual discussion on something in this category, I know some people don't like my suggestion, but it's something we should talk about. Cannabis income, to me, is found money, something that we would have never had the council not been astute enough to allow the business to come to our city. Given that, I'd like to hear thoughts, not now, but the next time around or the next time after that 33% of that fund that we collect, money that we collect, be applied to a specific fund for flooding and drainage. We have a lot of those problems, and Mark and I and others, Joe, we've been attacked at times. You know, you can't fix a 10-foot pipe, but you can do these things with big money and do big things. So those little things that are necessary to fix, I think we have to look for that. I just had another email that I sent on to everybody that is involved, and it was a good suggestion. How do we fix a particular flooded area every time the first raindrop drops? So I'll bring that up at the next meeting or whenever we do get discussion for topics, and we'll go from there. All right, Joe, you were calling on our clerk to do the warrants, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The total for the warrants is $136,907.49. We have wire payments on February 26, 2021. The payroll posting amounted to $164,480.88. The Illinois Public Pension Fund Association, or the IPPFA Retirement Health Care Funding, was at $8,661.83. The total warrant amount is $310,050.20 for council's approval, please.
Motion, please,
Motion to approve.
as presented.
As presented.
Second, Cameron.
We have a second. Any further discussion, question, or what? If there be none, let's take a vote.
Alderman Morgan Adams. Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Alderman Quinn.
Aye.
Alderman Dash.
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Joe, where do we go?
Madam Clerk, has anybody registered for public comment on non-agenda matters?
No, I didn't have any registrations, but please, as always, if anyone hasn't registered and they're on the meeting, please come forward, mention your name and your home address if you'd like to discuss anything, please.
All right,
And
thank you.
If there are none, Mr. Mayor, the next item, we have no executive session requested, which brings us to item 14, adjournment.
All right, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that,
Yes,
Alderman Dash, I'll make that motion to adjourn.
thank you. Voice vote, all in favor, say aye.
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 Assume that includes a second. Aye and aye, and motion passes 5-0. That's all I have. Thank you for attending tonight.